In my last video, I gave you a little tour of Kuala Lumpur, the capital city of Malaysia, and we mostly explored modern areas. So we went to the Petronas Towers, Bukit Bintang, and also KL Tower. But what I want to do today is go see the old core of Kuala Lumpur. And that's why we are back here on Merdeka Square, because around this square is where the older neighborhoods of KL are. So let's go have a look around and see what's happening here. Come and join me. Now the first building we see is this one right here, and that is the Sultan Abdul Samad building, and this was built by the British in 1897, and it also has this mixed architecture of Indian and Islamic elements, just like the KL train station. And this building right here, that was actually the British colonial administration. So this is where the British ran the Malay colony, and today it houses several ministries of the country of Malaysia. And yeah, now we're gonna go have a look around here. I don't have much of a plan, to be honest. I'm just gonna go casually explore. I hope that this area is a bit more walkable than the center of KL. And in my last video, a lot of people commented on what the center of KL actually is. Well, the old center is right here, but because there was so much development around the Petronas Towers and this modern business area, Bukit Bintang, that's why today many people actually refer to this as the center of KL. So they call this the Golden Triangle, which is where the Petronas Towers and all these skyscrapers are. But this area right here is actually where the early city of KL was centered around. So yeah, this is where mostly Chinese and Malay communities were living under the British colonization. So yeah, let's walk around and see what's happening here. It's around 9:30 a.m. Wednesday morning, not much going on, but now we are coming up to a very important place here. This right here is the confluence of two rivers. So on the left you have the river Gombak, and on the right the river Klang, if I'm not mistaken. And actually this is where Kuala Lumpur got its name from, because Kuala Lumpur means confluence out of mud. And yeah, the rivers here, they used to be very muddy, or they are still very muddy, and those two rivers run together, and that's how Kuala Lumpur got its name. Little fun fact for you there. And this mosque over there, this is the Masjid Jamek, if I say that correctly. This one was built in 1909. So this is a very old mosque, and it used to be the main mosque here in Kuala Lumpur, but it has obviously since been replaced by more modern mosques. And yeah, now let's continue and see some more of this old town here. Now here we are walking in a street with lots of Indian and Bangladeshi restaurants. I guess there are communities of Indian and Bangladeshi people here, because this seems to be the dominant food here in this street. But yeah, actually this area is also famous for Chinatown, but I think that Chinatown is a bit more into this direction, so we'll have to walk a bit more to get there. But yeah, this place right here, I almost fell down there. This place right here looks very, very different from the modern areas that we saw in my first video. And there you can see some of these old houses. And on the first floor you always have a shop, and then people living on the second floor. Lots of shops here, lots of markets, and not many tourists. Now this looks a lot prettier. Look at this old building. It's actually well maintained. So people told me that a lot of old buildings here in KL are not well maintained at all, and that there's a big problem with that. Sorry for the audio, it's very loud here. But yeah, look at these houses. Chinese style houses. And fun fact, actually, the British in the early 19th century, they introduced a law that you couldn't build houses out of wood anymore, because Kuala Lumpur used to be full of wooden houses, but the British didn't want that anymore, because they were always very prone to fire accidents, and so many of these houses burnt down. All right, now we are at this very busy intersection. So, oh, there's actually a pedestrian bridge. So I'll see you on the other side of the pedestrian bridge, and then we will enter one of the most famous streets here. Now this right here is Petaling Street, which is one of the most famous market streets here in KL, and it's sort of the Chinatown of this area. And here you have vendors and stores selling all sorts of stuff from these old Chinese, this one actually, Chinese houses. And yeah, you can see the buildings are very old, and there's lots of decoration and lots of stuff being sold. Oh, let's go have a look. What do they have here? Suitcases, some clothes, t-shirts. This is very similar to the places we've been to in Vietnam and Cambodia, where you can buy all sorts of clothes and jewelry and yeah, everything you need basically. Now the difference is that this isn't a closed market, this is more like a street with buildings, so it's not really an actual market, it's a street with lots of little shops. But yeah, you got all the t-shirts, NBA shirts, and obviously smell-o-vision hasn't been invented yet, but there are so many smells here, different smells of food, of textile, of everything. I mean, it's a weird mix of smells actually here. But yeah, look at it. And it is still very early, I think, because not much is going on at the moment. I think that in the afternoon this place gets super busy. But yeah, here obviously all the fake goods. And here you can see some of the old houses there with the colorful facades and the Chinese characters. And then here the welcome sign. Hello. Now let's walk into this street right here. Yeah, this is still Petaling, but there's like the main market area, and here's just a normal street. And I have to say, this street wasn't too impressive. Like, it's pretty much the same everywhere. So if you are into these markets, it's cool walking around there, but to be honest, it's not like it's sweeping me off my feet here. But yeah, this is the next street, and here we actually have more nice houses. Really beautiful ones actually. Now I've walked behind this Sheraton hotel that we saw earlier, and now here is another street that is supposedly very beautiful. So let's go have a look. This is more, you know, nice little houses, little restaurants, and colorful air conditioning units. How cool is that? And then obviously some murals. Wow, look at this mural. Beautiful. This one as well. So apparently there are many more murals here, but so far I haven't found them. Bigger ones actually. Let's go have a look. So I've been wondering all the time where these famous murals are that I saw on Google, and they are behind this gate right here. However, this street, which is called Kwai Chai Hong, is closed at the moment for some kind of event. So yeah, nothing we can do about it, but that's where there are some really beautiful murals here in this old core of KL. And yeah, here you have the buildings with the restaurants and the coffee shops. Now I have to say, this channel is always real, unscripted, unfiltered, and I'm pretty disappointed with this place. I mean, if you only have a few days in KL, I would not suggest coming here to Petaling Street, because it is pretty boring. Now, I don't want to end the video here. I actually thought that I could make a longer video here in this place, but I'm just a bit, you know, I'm not impressed with it. It's really not that special and not that beautiful. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go somewhere else and show you another place here in KL. So let's go. We are going from Pasar Seni to Museum Negara. Only one station. Really beautiful metro here. Very clean, modern and well organized. Well done, KL. To the right door. Alright, so now we are at the National Museum of Malaysia, the big building behind me. And to be honest, I have no idea what's in there, but let's go check it out. Hello, one please.
One ticket. Where are you from, sir?
Luxembourg. Luxembourg.
5 ringgit.
Now we are inside the National Museum, and as I was saying, I have no idea what's in here, but yeah, let's go have a look. Now this first part of the museum is mostly about prehistory and all the different species that were living here and vegetation. And as you might know, today Malaysia has actually two parts. The western part, which is here, and we are somewhere here in KL. And then there's also the eastern part, which is the island of Borneo. So one part of the island of Borneo is Indonesia, one part is Malaysia, and then there's the small country of Brunei somewhere in between. So yeah, and here you can see all the islands of Indonesia. And yeah, here we have all the prehistoric stones and fossils that were found. Here we have some of the early trade routes that happened long before the birth of Christ. And this was going from China through the Strait of Malacca, and then the Bay of Bengal, and of course India. And here you can see some Chinese pottery that was traded back then. And yeah, this is how trade started in this part of the world. So the most important thing to know about Malaysia is that its location here on the Strait of Malacca and the whole South China Sea and everything is just very, very strategic. So you had many different empires and civilizations who wanted to conquer Malaysia and use it as a strategic trading point, because it is located between basically India and China, two huge kingdoms of course. And yeah, mostly the Arab traders came and the Chinese before the Europeans. So the Arabs and Chinese were first, and then came all the Europeans, the Dutch who colonized Indonesia, and obviously the British who colonized Malaysia. And also the Arabs are the ones who brought Islam to Malaysia and Indonesia, and that's why today Indonesia is the most populous Muslim country. This is quite a beautiful building as well, this National Museum. Not really sure what this building was originally, but I will put that into the video. And yeah, let's continue our visit here. We are now at Gallery C. Also, this museum only costs 5 ringgit, which is just a bit more than $1, which is absolutely nothing. And it has 4 different exhibitions on different historical periods. So it's very well set up and organized. And yeah, let's continue. Here we have another map, and this one is about the Portuguese route to Malacca. So as you might know, the Portuguese sailor Vasco da Gama was the first European who reached India, and after that the Portuguese also reached Malacca, which they called then the Strait of Malacca, and obviously Indonesia and Indochina. As you might know, the Portuguese had many trading posts here in Asia, and they were actually also the first ones who conquered Malacca, and that was the Captain Alfonso de Albuquerque, and he actually conquered Malacca in 1511 as the first European. So obviously the Portuguese were the first to conquer Malacca, or the first Europeans I should say, but after that there was a lot of resistance, and the Portuguese actually had to fight against the Malays, but also against other Europeans, and later they lost against the Dutch. But the Dutch couldn't hold the modern day territories of Malaysia either, because of the British. Now, I am not a history expert, and I know a little bit about Malay history, but obviously not everything. But what I can tell you is basically what you should know is that the British, they took over these 3 strategic points: Penang, Singapore and Malacca. So Penang in 1785, Singapore in 1819 and Malacca in 1824. And after that they slowly unified the new colony of Malaysia, and that's how the British ran it. Basically, they had a unified colony, and they kept this colony until 1957, when the modern country of Malaysia was formed. I know that in the comments there will be a lot of history experts who will be pointing out stuff that I might not say 100% correctly, and yeah, you know, I'm not a history teacher, but I'm just trying to give you like the basic details of Malaysian history and the colonization, because it is such a fascinating period. But what I really want to tell you is that this museum is pretty amazing, and you should definitely come here to learn about Malaysian history, because it is very well organized, very well set up, and they explain everything in pretty simple terms here. So yeah, if you want to know about the history of Malaysia in detail, come to the National Museum. Now here in this last exhibition we have the British rule, the Second World War, and then the independence of Malaysia. So what you should know is that the British, they never ruled Malaysia directly. They did as they did in many colonies and protectorates. They basically put local rulers in place, and they took care mostly of international trade and foreign relations. That was actually the British system in many places, and Malaysia was very similar. So in 1941, the British troops were having trouble with the Japanese, and the Japanese actually occupied Malaysia. So the Japanese occupation lasted until 1945, and after the Second World War, the cries for independence really became louder. So in 1948, the Federation of Malaya was formed. This wasn't yet a fully independent country, but they did have 11 states and a British High Commissioner who was appointed by the British Crown. But it was a huge success for Malaysia, because they got a lot more self-governance than they had before, and they were basically now in charge of most of the important things that a government does. And then this was basically the stepping stone to get to real independence. The real independence came in 1957, when the Proclamation of Independence was signed. And I don't think that this is the original document. I think that this is a copy. But yeah, this is the Declaration of Independence. And then on August 31, 1957, the first ever Prime Minister, Tunku Abdul Rahman, he shouted Merdeka, Merdeka, which means independence, on Merdeka Square, which is the square that we saw today in the beginning of the video, and it was called something else back then. But yeah, this is how Malaysia became independent, and this is why today the National Independence Day is still on August 31, when the first Prime Minister shouted Merdeka. And yeah, this is the historic moment. Now here we are in the last gallery of the museum, and here they explain a bit of the modern history of Malaysia. So obviously you got the oil and gas company of Petronas, which everybody knows, and after which the Petronas towers are named. You also got a car manufacturer here, which is Proton, and I took so many taxis here, and they were all Protons, and I was always wondering where Proton is from. Well, it's actually from Malaysia. I didn't actually know that. So yeah, no big surprise that all the taxis here are Protons. And yeah, and here you get the different traditional dresses and celebrations. And yeah, today Malaysia is made up of 13 states and the federal territories. So there are 3 federal territories and 13 states. And that is the modern country of Malaysia. And yeah, we are now back here in the atrium of the National Museum. And I have to say, this museum is definitely worth a visit. It's very well organized. The explanations are very simple, very easy to understand, and very easy to follow. And also you have this route that you can take here. So you have A, B, C, and D, and it all goes chronologically. So if you want to learn something about Malaysia, just come here, spend 1 or 2 hours here. I was in here for about 1.5 hours, and then you will learn pretty much everything that you need to know. And yeah, this is the end of my little exploration here of the old town of Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. And I didn't actually plan on coming to this museum. I thought that the Chinatown area would be a bit more interesting, but it wasn't. But now I'm very happy that I came here, because that actually saved my day. So yeah, thanks very much for watching, and see you next time. Goodbye.